The words that we use, they shape how we see the dog, right? It's not really affecting the dog. I don't think dogs are like in there crying at nighttime being like, they call me a brat. Like, but it shapes how we see them. And I think it's actually getting in the way of truly understanding them. Okay, so the problem with labels like bratty or stubborn or needy, or even dominant and submissive, like take the technical terms or the training lingo, dominant and submissive stuff, right? A dog who is stubborn may not actually be stubborn, but they actually might be confused or they're unmotivated. Oh, that's what we're talking about today on the podcast. We're talking about dogs' personalities and the words that we use to describe their behaviors and how it's affecting how you see your dog. Let's get into it. Ready to have a calm and peaceful life with your dog without the stress of those fear-based behaviors? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I've been there, overwhelmed by all the conflicting dog training advice and unsure of what to do next. But now I help dog lovers like you simplify your life with your dog by building confidence naturally, fostering trust, and addressing those fear-based challenges. So, if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners and let's get to it. Well, hello, my dog-loving friend. It's Tracy. Welcome to Beyond Obedience, the podcast. I'm going to start today with welcome. First of all, why would I start? I was just going to jump right. Welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm really glad that you are here. If you're brand new to me, super duper welcome. I should say I did get an email. You know what? I didn't bring it. This isn't a proper show at all. I got an email saying that on some website I've been featured on the top 100 dog podcasts. And I was like, yay. And then in the top 15 Canadian dog podcasts. So, hey, it's not a great shout out for me because, as I say, I can't remember the name of the people that recognized me. So that's not great. But anyway, it just did get me thinking that, people are hearing this, people are noticing, people are liking the podcast. And if that is you, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing this podcast with your dog loving friends. Thank you for being a part of my life. This has been a journey, and I am glad to be on it with you. So I wanted to start off today by talking a little bit. I was thinking about this a lot lately because we've had some discussions in my family, some stuff going down. I'm not going to get into the personal stuff about it, but it led me down this path of talking about the personalities, but also labels that we give ourselves, labels that we give each other, that kind of thing. And my husband and I were talking about being an introvert. And I had mentioned to him that for me personally, I didn't know about being an introvert till I was, in my, I'm going to say late 30s, maybe early 40s was when I first kind of stumbled across this incredible book called Quiet, and by Susan Cain. And I literally was like, oh my gosh, that is me. And I didn't know. And the funny thing is that, once I sort of found this new label, this label of introvert, and I understood it at a deeper level, it did start to break away some shame and some confusion for when I was a little kid. Because when I was a kid, I was quiet and shy, right? I didn't say very much. If you looked at any of my report cards from when I was a little girl, it was always like, Tracy needs to speak up. Tracy needs to talk louder. I have this, I call it traumatic experience when I was in public school, where my French teacher, I guess, got so tired of me being so quiet that he made everybody go out in the football field. Not football, like we're Canadian. Nobody played football, but the soccer field, whatever, out in the field. We had to go outside, and all the class had to stand on one end of the field, and I had to stand on the other, and we weren't allowed to go in until everybody could hear me say the French words or the answers, and I had to yell it across the field. Did that cure me? No. Certainly didn't make me like French anymore, I'll tell you that much. But the reason why I say all of this is because I was a very, very shy, very, very quiet little girl. And I liked to hang out with my dogs. I had German Shepherds growing up. I liked to hang out with my dogs. And as I say, it wasn't until I was, in late 30s, early 40s. I don't know the exact time. I remember where I was when I came. I was sitting in the office at in Beyond Obedience. I was working, and I stumbled across this book, and it changed everything for me. And now all of a sudden, it normalized how I was feeling. Because I'm not going to lie, those words, like being shy, was discussed as almost like a negative thing, right? Like, you have to be better. You have to get better. Like, don't be so shy. Don't be so quiet. And so there was a part of me that always felt like I was wrong. I wasn't, that there was something wrong with me and all that stuff. I had a few good friends, like when I had a friend, she was my best friend, but I didn't like to hang around with groups of people. I wasn't really popular with like a bunch of friends. And there was something about that. There was a stigma attached to that growing up. And why am I telling you all of this? Why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you this, and what does this have to do with dogs? I'm telling you this because for me, labels and how we label things actually does matter. It matters because of the context in which we believe and what we believe the labels to be. And I truly do believe this also happens with dogs. One of the things that I do not like, discussing your dog or a dog's behavior, and you'd be like, your dog's being bratty. Like they're being snotty, bratty, and pushy. And I'm like, snotty, bratty, and pushy seems a little harsh, right? I get why they're saying it, because the dog is pushing. But I personally don't like the name of it, like bratty, snotty, pushy, because I don't think dogs are, well, I'm going to get into what I think that is. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this, right? The words that we use, they shape how we see the dog, right? It's not really affecting the dog. I don't think dogs are like in there crying at nighttime being like, they call me a brat. Like, but it shapes how we see them. And I think it's actually getting in the way of truly understanding them. Okay, so the problem with labels like bratty or stubborn or needy, or even dominant and submissive, like take the technical terms or the training lingo, dominant and submissive stuff, right? A dog who is stubborn may not actually be stubborn, but they actually might be confused, or they're unmotivated. And I'll share a little story with you and how this came up. And it's going to make more sense in the weeks to come, because we've got something really special coming up in March. And I'm kind of excited. This is going to all lead into that. But so when I was working with my horses, when I was doing a lot of like horsemanship stuff, my horse Magic, he was a horse that I called stubborn. Like, he was literally stubborn. It was like everything was on his terms. He didn't really feel like doing it. Like, he was just like, I don't really want to. Everything was an effort for this horse. Like, he was just like, ugh, I don't really want to. And I remember when I started working with Greg, who was my natural horsemanship instructor. And I was like, I don't know, he's so stubborn. Like, and I would say that word. I'm like, he's just so stubborn. And for me, stubborn meant that he was like intentionally like putting his hoof in the ground with his, his arms crossed, just being like, I'm not doing it. Like, that's stubborn. That's what stubborn means to me. And Greg really helped me reframe it by saying, he's like, I don't think your horse is stubborn. He's just really unmotivated, which means he has a what's in it for me personality. And that's more about you. You just haven't found a way to connect with this horse in a way that motivates him to want to do the things. And I was like, I don't think that's true. I think he's just stubborn. Like I hung on to it for a while. I'm like, he's just stubborn. But after a while of kind of contemplating it, I was like, okay, well then fine. What motivates you? Like what really motivates you? He was a horse. He was motivated by carrots and stuff like that. But then one day I was like, I'm going to try an obstacle course, but I'm going to hide carrots everywhere. I don't know why. I don't know why that came over me, but I did. And I still remember because at the time we had just purchased a child's play structure that we were using for the dogs as a play, as some environmental enrichment for the dog playground. And it was in the arena at the time. And so I was like, I'm going to hide some stuff in there. And I ended up putting a carrot under a little cone that was inside the plastic play structure thing, the kids play structure thing. Anyway, I start taking him on this this little adventure. And as I'm taking him over obstacles, he's kind of he's half-assing it. But when he figured out that after he got through the obstacle, there was a cone, and if he flipped the cone over, he found a carrot. I think it was about probably 3 obstacles in when Magic suddenly realized that there was a game of hide and seek and he could find carrots. And what happened next was the most extraordinary thing, because did the horse not turn over the entire arena? He literally was all of a sudden he was like, there's stuff in these things. So he started to really go after things. He went to the next obstacle. He'd go over the jumps. He went through some of it. I made him sort of back up in an L shape sort of thing. So there were trotting poles on the ground. I was making him do that. And he powered through stuff. So because he knew the cone was at the other side, and then he flinged the cone off and then eat the carrot. And the last place I had left, I don't think I had meant to put the carrots in the play structure. I just put the leftover carrots in there thinking he's never going to go near it. Did this horse not literally take his nose and flip the entire play structure over? And I was like, oh my gosh. But it was the most incredible moment because I literally was he was racing through all of the obstacles. He was doing all this stuff and then tearing apart my arena to find these carrots. And I was and it wasn't the carrots. I should point that out because people he was obviously food motivated. He was food motivated, but it wasn't the carrot. It was the fact that he had figured out that if he flipped stuff over, there was food underneath of it. And I don't know if that was a great thing to have taught him, to be perfectly honest with you. But my point is this. I was going through life thinking that he was just stubborn and he just didn't want to do stuff, blah, 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 which was true. He didn't, but he just didn't want to do it with me. He could do things. He just didn't want to do it with me. And when I made that after that moment, I saw him in a whole new light. It changed the way that I viewed it because it wasn't now looking at him going, oh, he's just being stubborn. I was like, okay, I'm not reaching you. What do I have to do to be better for you? How do I reach you at a different level so that you are engaged with me? And it's going to take something different. With my horse Flame, I didn't have to do that. She was motivated by other factors and wasn't that quote unquote stubborn, right? So it really did change how I look at things. And as a result of that, I started incorporating different terminologies for dogs' personalities. I stopped using words like dominant, submissive, and all of that sort of thing because people have an association with that. They've made assumptions about what that word means. So as I mentioned, a dog that's stubborn might not actually be stubborn. They might just be unmotivated. A dog that's clingy or needy, it's just seeking safety and reassurance, right? Because these aren't personality traits. They're behaviors, right? And lots of times the danger of labels is that, sometimes they make us feel like there's nothing we can do, especially when it comes to things like the word dominant or submissive. I quite often, been helping people and gone into their house and they're like, well, this dog is just really, really dominant. And so because of that, we have this, that's ingrained in them and therefore nothing can change that. And I'm not saying that dogs aren't born innately something, because they are. Some dogs are born innately confident. Some dogs are born innately less than confident. But that doesn't mean that how we respond to them and how we interacted with them can't influence the way that they innately are. But there's so many people that will throw their hands up in the air and just be like, that's just the way my dog is. You know, my dog's just a dominant dog. Like, he's going to be that way. Well, no, that's not necessarily the case, right? And I think on the opposite side of that is this idea that it's all in the way that you raise them. Has anyone ever heard that phrase where we're like, you know, we don't hold the dogs responsible because it's all in the way you raise them? This is the classic nature versus nurture argument, right? And at the end of the day, genetics matter. Okay? Genetics matter. And as I said, dogs are born innately something, innately confident, innately less than confident, right? Some dogs are more confident than others. Breed tendencies influence the behavior. They 100% do, right? But environment also plays a huge role in that, right? How our dogs experience the world shapes their ability to navigate it, right? So for example, like a sensitive dog in a chaotic environment where there's lots of noise and unpredictability and overstimulation, they are going to struggle to cope with even the smallest stressors because they are inundated with them. Whereas, you know, in contrast to that, a dog that is understimulated in a void environment with little exposure to novelty, they're isolated and have minimal enrichment, they will have a limited adaptability and reduced resilience, right? Think of it like a muscle, right? Dogs need healthy exposure to new experiences to build mental flexibility and the ability to handle new situations without stress, right? So without it, they can become overwhelmed or rigid, right? And this is where neuroplasticity comes in, right? Our brain's ability to adapt and change and form new connections based on our experiences. And in dogs, this affects their ability to cope with change or recover from stress or build confidence, right? So it's important, right? But here's the most important truth about everything. And if there's one thing that I want you to take away from all of this is that no dog wakes up thinking, how can I be stubborn today? like they're not waking up going, how can I push Jill right over the edge? Like they're not doing that, right? They're just being a dog, right? In a world as they understand it, dogs only know how to be dogs. They don't know how to be anything else, right? As much as we want to call them like fur babies and all of that thing, the bottom line is they only know how to be dogs. Yes, they can adapt and they learn to change based on, you know, our input. But in the end of the day, they only know how to be dogs and they're just being dogs in the environment you've put them in. So instead of labeling them as being stubborn, try asking, oh, here it is. How interesting. How interesting. Why is my dog acting that way? Stop seeing the behavior as a personality flaw and start seeing it as my dog's behavior is just communication. They're telling me something. They're telling me how they feel about what's going on around them. And once you start to do that, everything else is going to shift for you. You're going to see things in a different way. And that is why I stopped using those words. I mean, I'll occasionally still use them, but I've tried to actually reevaluate ways to look at my dogs, utilizing words that we're not really using so that they have no emotional baggage attached to them. And it has really helped shape not only like how I see the dog, but how I need to show up for that dog. And that's the ultimate goal. How do I need to show up for this dog? Now, everything is fluid, right? And you're going to hear me say this a lot over the next couple of weeks when we start to introduce the doginality profiles. That's what's coming up in the month of March. We're going to have a really great quiz that you can sign up for to figure out what is your dog's doginality. And then you're going to get a bunch of emails from me sort of talking about it, breaking it down for you so that you can kind of really get a grasp on this. But what I want you to understand before we get into it as a precursor is that behavior and this doganality stuff that we're talking about is fluid. Your dog isn't just the same as, like all those personality tests that we take, like the Briggs-Meyer and, oh gosh, there's so many of them. My brain's not thinking of them. All I know is that I'm a INFJ and Briggs-Meyer, Enneagram. That's the other one that I'm thinking of. All of those kind of things. They're great kind of fun things to know, but everything is fluid. Nothing is like stagnant where we're just like, this is exactly what you are 100% of the time. That's not how it is. And the same thing is true for your dog. But what I do find with the doganality work that we've done and with people that have already sort of gone through the doganality stuff is it allows you to see your dog in a different light. And as I said, I think the biggest advantage to starting to look at it this way is that you no longer have the old baggage associated with the words like dominant or submissive. You're going to have a sort of a broader understanding and just a little bit. The goal is that a little bit more openness. So I'm kind of excited about that. That's coming up. Paisley and I have some work to do to get everything ready for you. But, be on the lookout for that. There's going to be a cool little quiz that you can take. What's your dog's doganality? And then lots of info going around that. But we're going to be talking more about that here on the podcast. Hey, listen, if you enjoyed this episode, can you do me a favor? Take 5 seconds, maybe longer than that, because sometimes it's hard to find, but take some time if you're on Apple to give me a 5-star written review. It really does help to push the podcast out to more and more people. But if you're listening on other platforms, you can comment on Spotify. You can rate on Spotify. Anywhere else that you can share this with your friends. Tag me in it. If you share it on Facebook, tag me in it, whatever you want to do. It really does help to push the podcast out to more and more people. And if you're looking for some more one-on-one help with this, understanding your dog and understanding how your dog sees the world around you and how you can be what your dog needs you to be, you can book a one-on-one coaching call, a calm, confident coaching call with me. It's at a great introductory price right now. Go to beyondobedience.ca/session to book your coaching call with me. We'll sit down, we'll talk about your dogs, and we'll get, we'll figure it out together. We'll figure it out together. There's no such thing as a one size fits all when it comes to dog training. And that's why if you're looking for a good starting place, that coaching call is a great place to start. All right. I think that's it for me today. So as always, get out there today and be the person that your dog thinks you are, because your dog thinks that you're amazing. And so do I. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next episode. And one more thing, this podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only, and it's not meant to replace hands-on professional training. If you're really struggling with your dog, please reach out to a professional in your area. All right, I think that's it. Bye for now.